Sarah soiledplant and welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to be going over my Hoya collection. I'm slowly starting to expand out my collection. I think they're really cool plants. I just don't get them in my area super often, but I will definitely keep trying to get more Hoyas into my collection. But for right now, I will show you the ones that I currently have. The first one I'm going to show you is actually my Hoya obavada. When I unboxed this plant from the order from Amazon, it had a couple of leaves on it, and it's definitely grown a few leaves since then. I've had this plant since about the beginning of May, so I've had this a couple months, and it's already grown this much for me, and it is so gorgeous. The leaves are super succulent-y. They don't really even bend very much. I almost feel nervous bending them because I'm afraid they're gonna snap. It's definitely cute. I love the nice round leaves and the little speckles in it. They do have a splash variety of this and variegated varieties, but honestly, the classic, just like regular one, I think is totally my favorite. Considering how much it's grown in the first couple months since I bought it, I'm really looking forward to seeing what this does next year. I plan on leaving this plant alone and then hopefully propagating it next summer, spring, something like that. I love having it in this little pot. I got this from IKEA, you know, back in the spring. I'm not sure if they still have these, but this little setup that I've got going on is just so precious and I love it. It's perfect. And the good thing about this particular Hoya is that it's relatively affordable. Like I said, I bought mine from Amazon, so not super pricey, fairly easy to get a hold of. I highly recommend these. No issues for me. Love it. The next Hoya on my list is my Hoya Kentiana varagata. This one I bought on a whim when I happened to see it in a store. It's super cute. It's got that variegated leaves with the lighter green on the inside of the leaf, and it darkens as it gets to the outside. When it first pops out, you've got that nice pink rosy color that I truly like. I can't get enough of when new plants put out new growth and they're like pink or red or purple or something like that, and then they fade to green. I've never gotten over that. I love everything about that. I'm curious what the science is behind it, but ultimately, I just think it's really cute. You'll notice I'm missing some tips, and that is because one of my cats found this and chewed on it like less than a week ago, but it's still doing pretty well for me. This whole section right here, I grew since buying it, so I'm hopeful for the future of this plant. I am really used to Hoyas kind of stagnating and then growing after having it for a long time. That was my experience with my first Hoya, and I'm really happy that my experience now is so different from what I was expecting Hoya to be. I thought they were going to be almost like cactus or succulent in their growth type, where they are going to be really slow and they wouldn't really be exciting to watch and sort of watch and see how they grow and how they develop and how they kind of sprout out in different locations. Like, I've been pretty happy seeing this one grow. I've been told that this one in particular is a very slow grower, and I don't doubt it, but for me, this amount of growth is completely fine with me. And I definitely love kind of the difference of like pink, yellow, green, just really, really cool. This little like yellowy cream color on the inside. I don't really see the back sides of the leaves very often, but even the back sides, you can kind of see through it, and they're really super cute. So there's definitely a benefit to this one being a hanging plant if it turns into a hanging plant for me. But for right now, I really, really love this. But yeah, I've been loving this one, and I like the color combo for sure. And oh, the long skinny leaves. I didn't even mention the long skinny leaves. Little string beans, like they're little green beans. I could just pop them off and eat them. They're really, really cute. The next one I'm going to show you is actually this monster of a plant right here. And this is one that I bought at a local nursery here. And this is a Hoya Carnosa Crimson Princess, and also has a good healthy amount of the standard Hoya Carnosa kind of mixed in. Now, it might be cheating, but I kind of count this as two different varieties of plants because technically the Carnosa is different. I'm not 100% sure if this is just, you know, reverted princess or if it was just planted in the wrong plant. Either way, I'm really happy to have both of them and get a little 2-for-1 on this plant. Carnosas are definitely some of the more easier Hoyas to find. They are a great starter Hoya. They grow really, really quickly. Even mine in here, the Carnosa side, is definitely growing a lot faster than the Princess side. It doesn't have to deal with variegation, and variegation generally stunts growth on plants. So the all green varieties, more often than not, will grow faster than the variegated counterparts. So it doesn't necessarily surprise me that the Carnosa is growing so much faster. You'll also see it's shooting off growth in this long, skinny, gangly bit over here. I always have to turn this plant to make sure that the little dangling bits don't taunt the cats. And seeing it grow so much is just, woo, super satisfying. So now we'll focus on the Princess a little bit. The Carnosa Crimson Princess will have white/cream variegation on the inside of the leaf with the green on the outside. It has the pink stems that are super delicate and pretty, and they stay green, I believe. I don't think they really go back to green. Maybe they do. This one kind of looks like a half and half situation. So like this stalk right here is interesting because it's got this leaf, which has got a small amount of variegation, this one that's straight up green, this one that's straight up green, and then this one that's very much a princess. So I'm not sure if I could really get all of this back into Princess or if they're Carnosa, like this one right here. This stalk right here is definitely coming back into Princess mode. So yeah, maybe all of my Carnosa is going to turn back into Princess since I'm giving it better light. Who knows? We'll find out. I have gotten so much growth off of this plant. It is kind of insane how many little tendrils this thing has been shooting off. There seems like there's a million of them all in different directions, and I'm here for it. I think it's so happy. It's growing so cool. Hoyas to me always kind of read as more of like an organic, like boho, a little more granola type of plant, just because of how cool and succulenty the leaves are, but the growth pattern, I don't know why it does that for me. So I kind of love that this is like a different variety of plant from the normal stuff I get with like huge tubular leaves and all of that type of stuff, or like long dangly bits or whatever, or pothos. Like I just love that this growth pattern and this sort of like tuft of plant just to me looks a little bit different than all of my other plants. It's not just, maybe it's because the leaves are so succulenty that they almost kind of have their own support system and they're very structural, but in an organic, flowy, natural plant kind of way. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that's like always what I think about when I think about Hoyas, is I think about like succulenty but organic looking. I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm just rambling at this point, but ultimately I love this plant. I'm really happy that I have a few more Hoyas in my collection, this one included. I was so excited when I found this one, and I will definitely keep this one right here because I'm going to compare it to its sort of sister plant here, which is my Hoya Crimson Queen. They're very subtle differences. Obviously, the more light you give it, the more white variegation you're going to have. And the Princess technically has almost more white variegation kind of by square inch than a Hoya Carnosa Crimson Queen, at least in my case. They don't sit right next to each other, so this one could be getting better light than this one is. You know, it's hard to tell. So as far as differences between these two, obviously you can see that the white is on the outside versus the white on the inside. The saying to help you remember this is that the queen wears the crown, so the circle wears the crown, and the princess wears the dress, or the inside of the leaf is the dress. So crown, dress. The other thing that's subtly different between these two, you've got the very pale pink stems on the princess, whereas on the queen, they're much sort of like a redder kind of burgundy color, which is super beautiful. I almost wouldn't call it burgundy. It's almost like a reddy purple, sort of like if you wore like a dark purple lipstick or something that had a good amount of red in it. It is very similar to a color like that. That might be a maroon, but the stems on this one are much darker, and then the older stems definitely turn back to green once they are older. The newer stems on this one anyway have that deep reddy, like purple color to it. The new growth on both are pink and like have that nice blush color to it. I would say it's more pronounced in the queen than it is in the princess. But yes, I do have both, and even though they are very, very similar, I think they're different enough that I can really love and appreciate both, so I have both. And the last Hoya in my collection is actually my Hoya pubic calyx splash. I think it's just a regular Hoya pubic calyx, but it was definitely sold to me as a splash. I have one stem in here that is definitely throwing more of that like snowy variegation that gives it like a very much a kind of dusted with powdered sugar look to it, and I love it, but I am not going to sort of separate it out from the rest of the plant just yet. But I do feel like a section of this plant is definitely more on the splash side of things, and this side is definitely more of a regular pubic calyx. Either way, this plant is so incredibly cool. I love the longer leaves. I think that, you know, it being kind of long compared to like a Carnosa leaf is definitely like a cool shape to it, but the leaves themselves aren't quite as long and skinny as my Kentiana is. So it's kind of that nice like middle ground in between the two. This one for me has been a very healthy grower basically since I got it. It has never not grown for me. I feel like it grew over the winter with the right lighting and the right watering schedule. It's very happy with me, and I have no idea why. My kind of experience with Hoya is that you need to be able to dry out between waterings, but also give it the best sun you pretty much can. You know, with those two things, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a happy Hoya. In addition to these Hoya, I've also had a Crimson Queen die on me, and I've also had the Hindu rope, the one that's the compacta, and that one had mealybugs really bad and ended up killing the plant. That is the one and only time I've ever had mealybugs, and it decimated that poor plant, so I wasn't able to save it by the time I realized it had mealybugs. Hopefully you like this video. If you have a favorite, let me know. If you think I should get more Hoya, if you think I've got plenty of Hoya. But that concludes my Hoya collection. You know, it's small, but it's mighty. I'm very happy with the ones I have, and they all seem to be doing really well and growing and happy and sort of, you know, not being troubling plants. Or not troubling, but like troublemaker plants. Like sometimes they just like don't grow a ton, and that's kind of the one downside to Hoya, but I don't have really any complaints. I think they're super hardy plants and definitely can dry out between waterings, so if you're somebody who needs your plants to dry out and you don't like keeping your plants on the moist side, this is definitely a cool option. That concludes this Hoya collection video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I will catch you next time. Bye!